Edward Cabrera carved up the Atlanta Braves on Monday night. He made them look like a AAA lineup.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I'm a diehard Marlins fan, and I've podcasted about the team for the last 4 seasons. You can find me on X at Jeremiah Geiger 2, and thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets right now. And on today's show, I'm going to talk about another masterful performance from Edward Cabrera as he continues his breakout career season. We're also going to revisit the Jazz Chisholm Jr. trade from a year ago and then talk about a couple of players that deserve some credit, Troy Johnston and Mad Max Acosta. Let's start with Edward Cabrera because on Monday, he dominated the Braves. And if you remember a couple weeks ago when he faced Atlanta in Atlanta at Truist Park, the lone win the Marlins got was because of Edward Cabrera when he went 8 innings and struck out 11. In this game, he goes 7 innings and strikes out 10 while only allowing 1 base hit. He walked 2, did not allow a run. He lowers his season ERA to 3.32. Cabrera is masterful. And it brings me a lot of joy that arguably the 2 best starts this season for him have been against the hated division rival Atlanta Braves. Actually, the last 3 starts for Edward Cabrera against the Braves have been really, really good. If you go back to last season, I was at this game in Truist Park. Cabrera went 5 innings, I believe 5 shutout innings and 8 strikeouts. It happened in early August, and that's just off the top of my head. But Cabrera, what he's doing on the mound solidifies himself as a top of the rotation type pitcher, a frontline starter. There should be no more questions about Cabrera and his volatility and whether this breakout is legit. Is it fool's gold? We have enough of a sample size already. He's shot through his previous career high in innings. This season, he's made 23 starts. He's at 124 2/3 innings pitched. He hadn't thrown 100 innings in the major leagues before this year. So he's well on his way to setting a career high by a large margin in terms of his workload. And the stuff is just insane. It jumps off the page. He got a 54% whiff rate on both the curveball and the changeup, which it's nutty. A 54.5% whiff rate. Hitters, when they get in the box against Cabrera, his stuff is so nasty you can hardly do anything with it. It will take an Edward Cabrera mistake for your team, for your lineup to produce runs. And unless he gets super unlucky, like he did against the Cardinals, his last start out, I told you guys, I said, don't worry about it. He got blown up, so to speak, gave up 11 hits, the majority of which were all on soft contact. And that is due in part to the hitters making some good swings and getting lucky. But when Cabrera gets beat, historically, it's been because of 2 things. He either leaves a fastball or a breaking ball right down the center of the plate and gives up a home run and just gets hit really hard, or his control is all over the place. He elevates his pitch count. He walks the bases loaded. He gets runners on. And then 1 hit is going to score a couple of runs, and you're in the showers after 4 2/3. That it has not been the case for Eddie this year. And moving forward, Cabrera should be looked at as a building block in this rotation. I don't want to hear any more Cabrera trade talk. And honestly, one of my biggest fears regarding the Marlins is this offseason. If Peter Bendix doesn't keep Cabrera and he's hanging him out there for dangling him as a trade chip in the offseason, and another team swoops in and grabs him and we lose him. And honestly, this is kind of how I felt at the trade deadline when Cabrera's name was getting brought up in rumors. I said, look, unless the offer is something you cannot refuse, then don't trade him. Hold on to him. You'll have three more years of control. And to an extent, I still look at it that way. I think I view pretty much any potential trade regarding the Marlins in that perspective. It has to be an overpay. And that's kind of cliche. That's just a saying that's thrown out all the time. Well, if they overpay, yeah, we'll listen to an offer. But realistically, at this point, I don't see how you can trade Cabrera. I think he's part of your core. And for a team that's far surpassed expectations in 2025, 2026, there's no reason to not look at Cabrera as one of your aces, along with Yuri Perez, and hopefully Sandy if he bounces back and is still in town, to make a wild card run, to make a run at the division, to make a run at the postseason, because ultimately this is what it's all about. We're tired of the countless rebuilds. At some point, you have to start building and then keep the building intact. Don't bring in the demolition crew to just knock everything down and then restart. You're finding your core. We're seeing that. He made the Braves look like a AAA lineup, and that's a direct shot at a Twitter user over in the Braves section of the world, Bean Eater Buzz, who infamously said that he believed the Gwinnett Stripers had a better lineup than the Miami Marlins. How the tables have turned. And as the saying goes in the great movie Good Will Hunting, how you like them apples. Because if I told you at the beginning of spring training that Edward Cabrera would outduel Spencer Strider, you would have called me nuts. And yet here we are. That's exactly what happened. The Marlins win the game. They kick off the series against the Braves with a much needed win. They're still above them in the standings, by the way. That's in terms of wins and losses, I really want to finish ahead of the Braves. Look, the postseason's unlikely. 7 games under 500 is what it is, but stay ahead of Atlanta. I want those bragging rights. How you like them apples? Miami wins it 2-1. The winning pitcher is Edward Cabrera. His record is now at 7-7. Spencer Strider drops to 5-12 with a 4.95 ERA. He gets the loss. Cabrera outduels Spencer Strider. Braves fans are in shambles. Now, the Marlins, as currently constructed, I talked about a core. Part of their young core has been Jacob Marcy. I think you can pencil him in there. Obviously, the pitching staff, Yuri, Cabrera. I view him as a cornerstone now. Agustin Ramirez. I've been saying this for a while. Whether he sticks at catcher, which I don't think he will, or eventually moves to first base, designated hitter, wherever it may be, he's still part of your core because of the value he brings with the bat. But I think it's time to revisit the Jazz Chisholm Jr. trade, because Jazz was such a crucial and important piece of a Marlins era. You know, the Marlins weren't winning a lot. They did get into the playoffs. Jazz was part of that team. He gets traded to the Yankees, and he's having a good season in the Bronx. And I think it's going to be a fun exercise to kind of look at both players and discuss who won that trade. Was there a winner of this trade, or is it too early to tell? That's coming up right after this. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, you're eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. I know one team that I'm not going to bet on for the rest of the before the season, wherever it may be, is the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't stand them. I can't stand Mahomes. So if there's any Chiefs fans listening to the podcast, that's how strongly I feel about them. And honestly, I like somebody else coming out of the AFC. I like the Bills. I like the Ravens. Maybe my team, the Chargers, makes a run at the AFC Championship this season. Who knows? But if you have a hunch that you want to put some money on, visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only, and that is August 26th, which, if you're listening to this podcast, is today. FanDuel, play your game. I appreciate all the everyday listeners who make tuning in to Locked On Marlins part of their daily routine. On the YouTube channel, we're over 2,000 subscribers. It's only here on up. It's only up from here on out, if that's correct. Jazz Chisholm Jr., Agustin Ramirez. Let's talk about that deal again. And I think when it comes to discussing who won the trade, is there a winner of the trade? It's not as clear-cut as it looks, because teams have different, not priorities. The ultimate priority is winning and building a winning organization, but they're in different circumstances. The Yankees and the Marlins could not be polar opposites from each other. The Yankees, when they made that trade a season ago, were in very much win now mode. The Marlins were trying to sell everybody who had an ounce of value on the roster at the time to try to accelerate and kick off this rebuild. And what I will say about the Marlins and their trades, and Peter Bendix in particular, being the president of baseball operations, is that he's been a really good trader for the most part. Of course, you all know, if you're an everyday listener, how much I disliked the Jesus Luzardo trade, and I don't think anything's going to change my mind unless Starlin Caba becomes an all-star shortstop. It is what it is. That's you can't hit them all out of the park. And I think Peter Bendix got worried with Luzardo's health. He wanted to get him out of town. They wanted to trade him at the deadline last year. He got hurt. It was a whole fiasco. But the biggest trade chip that they moved in 2024 was Jazz Chisholm Jr., and they got back Agustin Ramirez. And right off the bat, there was a lot of hope for Agustin, because scouts and people that follow the farm system, they saw the potential in what he brings when he steps in the box. When he's got a piece of lumber in his hands, he's going to do damage. The exit velocities were there. The metrics were there. He was stealing bases in the minor leagues. And if you watch Agustin Ramirez, it's not a huge part of his game, but he's a very savvy base runner. He's a good offensive piece. The question was his defense. And I think when you look at this trade from, if you take the rose-colored glasses off for a second, you take the teal-colored glasses off, and you just look at production overall. Right now, Jazz Chisholm Jr. is outpacing Agustin Ramirez in WAR. If you go by that stat, numbers. If you're a numbers guy or girl and you're listening to the podcast, watching the show, numbers are numbers. Jazz has a 3.5 WAR to his name. Agustin minus 0.2. And a lot of that, I'm sure, has to do with his defense because he's just a really bad defender at catcher. Jazz setting a career high in WAR. He's tied his career high in homers this season with 24 on the season. He's hitting 239. Agustin hitting 232. 62 RBIs for Jazz, 57 for Agustin. Jazz's OPS at 818, Agustin at 718. So as exciting as Agustin has been for the Marlins, sometimes I see this discourse, especially on Twitter, that number one is portraying Jazz as not an effective player. And number two, acting like the Marlins, that was a great trade for the Marlins right off the bat. Agustin, we killed it. We absolutely got our guy, and it's as clear cut as that. I don't think it's a clear win for the Marlins. I don't think it's a lose for the Marlins either. This is what we call a win-win. And you know what? I'm fine with that. When Trevor Rogers is throwing 7 shutty against half the American League, he's 13 starts in with an ERA of 1.97. What is Trevor Rogers' ERA? Let's pull it up here because this is on the fly, but this is another example of a pitcher who is just performing. A player who the Marlins traded away and is performing very, very well. 1.40 ERA for Trevor Rogers on the season. Guess what? We have Kyle Stowers. And that's how I feel about the Agustin Ramirez trade. You guys, the Yankees, you got Jazz. The Marlins got Agustin. And I believe in Agustin and his potential so much that, I would do this trade again. Even knowing Jazz's numbers are better this season, that's fine. Because I think Agustin can eventually get that average climbing up. That he's not going to be hitting in the low 230s. That he gets more to the 260 range. Once he avoids chasing a little bit more and has a little bit more discipline in the box. Sometimes you'll see him swing at pitches that aren't remotely close to the zone. And lately he's been in a cold spell. But a lot of Marlins fans were quick to turn on Jazz once he left the organization. And I don't like that. I don't. I think Jazz gave everything to the Marlins. He had fun while he was on this team. He was a fan favorite. Yes, he plays the game with a certain flair, with an energy, with a enthusiasm that a lot of people don't like. That some people will say, he's not respectful to the game. And I don't care. I don't care about the energy and the fancy cleats and the comments he make. Is it sometimes immature? Sure. You can chalk it up to immaturity, maybe. You can chalk it up to somebody that's just doesn't have the best, I guess, approach when it comes to speaking with the media. But it's not the end of the world. And he's a fun player to watch. And kids, the baseball's a kid's game. And kids are going to gravitate to a player like Jazz. And as much as I don't like Ronald Acuna Jr., kids gravitate to Ronald Acuna Jr. And I don't think he means poorly. And so that's my little spiel when it comes to Jazz Chisholm and Agustin Ramirez. I'm happy with who the Marlins got. I wouldn't give Agustin away. I think the Yankees look at Agustin Ramirez and they wish they had him, but they're also happy that they have Jazz. And so hindsight is always going to be 2020, especially when it comes to trades. That's just how the world works. That's how the sporting world works. But I think it's a very close, a very fair trade. Of course, the Marlins got a few more prospects, but the headliner, of course, was Agustin Ramirez. But it's an interesting discourse and discussion to have because not a lot of people really revisit this topic. Jazz is in New York, Augustin's in Miami. We're happy we have Gus. They're happy they have Jazz. Isn't that what you kind of want out of a trade? If you're two GMs or if you're two fan bases, I don't want to see the player we trade away become a scrub. I'm rooting for Trevor Rogers. I'm rooting for Agustin Ramirez. I'll still root for Christian Yelich. I like them as the players. It's the game of baseball. I'm a Marlins fan, but I also love the game of baseball. And I love watching certain players play the game. And when you're a former Marlin, you're easy to root for. So a lot of people are going to disagree, and that's fine. This is an open-ended discussion. If you think that Jazz's antics on and off the field are too much and you really dislike the guy, that is completely your opinion and you're entitled to it. But it really doesn't bother me as much as it bothers a lot of other people. You take it with a grain of salt. You move on. I wouldn't say some of the things if I was in the position he was or he is to the media. You know, like there was that play a couple weeks ago, I think it was against the Marlins, which he got doubled up on a pop-up. And he said, yeah, I would do it again. I'm trying to make a play. Hey, at that point, just admit you're wrong. You know, you can sense some pride, and pride comes before the fall. We all know that. But overall, to write off Jazz as just a bad player and that the Marlins were good to get rid of him, now we have Agustin Ramirez. Sometimes you got to be objective with it. So now let's move on because I want to talk about a couple of players who contributed to the Marlins win on Monday. Mad Maximo Acosta. There's a fun fact about him that I'm going to discuss more in detail up next. And also fan favorite Troy Johnston because he's been heating up as well. That's coming up right after this. Guys, we want to hear from you. Locked On wants to hear your opinion. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. I'll put it down below. Thank you for helping us out. This episode is also brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. The grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. It's perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. A golf story quickly for you. My old roommate, when I was in the military, he was a golfer and he watched me do a practice swing and he said it needs some work. And that's some of the reason why I'm not a good golfer. But if you are and you want to go hit the course, golf's all about the good times with the good people, your friends, your family, and good flavors. And the grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to. And now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. Leave a like. It helps out the channel a lot. We've already hit 2,000 subscribers. We're going to keep going. But remember, Locked On Marlins, it's on all the major podcast platforms. So you can listen to the show wherever you are. If you're at the gym, you're driving your car, you're cooking up some home-cooked meals, doesn't matter. You can listen to Locked On Marlins and get your daily Marlins content. In the Marlins 2-1 win, the 2 run producers for the Fish, Max Acosta and Troy Johnston. And in the previous segment, I said that Max Acosta, Mad Maximo, there's a bit of a trivia stat when it's about his career, about the start to his career. And all 3 hits that Max has hit, all 3 base hits, they've all been homers. And I'll tell you what, before the episode, I was trying to do some research, and I could not find anybody else who has hit homers in all 3 to get their first 3 hits to start their career. So the first 3 hits of their career, all home runs. Interesting. No singles, no doubles, no triples, just homers. Never seen anybody like that. He's on pace to finish his career with only homers. I don't even think Barry Bonds finished his career with just home runs. And I am joking, of course, but Mad Max, it's good to see some power come through for him. I felt like the call-up was a bit premature, given his stats in the minors, his splits, both against left-handed and right-handed pitching. I think he had reverse splits in the minor leagues. And that's an interesting dynamic when it comes to a player you want to call up, where the pitching's just going to be better. It's just going to be better. But he's struggled a little bit. He's only hitting 167, 3 hits in 18 at-bats, but all 3 hits have been homers. So maybe the power's there. We're seeing that at least. He can tap into some more consistency and become a player that the Marlins have a decision to make in spring training. Again, fostering that competition. Give the Marlins another player who's going to push the third baseman for their job, who's going to push Otto Lopez and Xavier Edwards because he can play all around the middle infield and at the hot corner. Like I said, that's what I love. I love competition. Competition brings out the best in organizations. And Max Acosta, he's going to have another 30 or so games left. Let's see what he can do. Play him as much as possible. There's no point in sitting him on the bench. Give him extended periods of time in which he's playing every single day. Give him those consistent reps, especially at the plate. He was impressive in spring training. Statistically, in the minor leagues, wasn't doing so hot, but got the call-up, and now he has his opportunity. The other player who got an opportunity in the minors, or at the majors rather, is Troy Johnston. And Troy's starting to hit his groove. The last 15 games, he's hitting 282. He's 11 for 39, 1 homer, 5 RBIs. He also stole a base, by the way. So really great to see for Troy. Somebody that statistically and production-wise did everything asked of him from level to level to get the call. And it didn't come. Didn't come after 2023. It didn't come in 2024. And just when you think you're losing hope that you're ever going to see Troy Johnston get his shot, he got it. And now he's trying to make the most of it. He had an RBI double against Spencer Strider, which I think is just great. When you have an RBI extra base hit against a pitcher like Spencer Strider with that name pedigree, even though he struggled this season, that's an accomplishment. That's a major league hitter. He's a professional of all professionals when it comes to, just being a leader and a good guy in the clubhouse and somebody that's just ready to work. So I'm really happy Troy's up there playing. It's a dream come true for him. And for Marlins fans, we're ecstatic. We're all rooting for Troy to succeed the rest of the way and give the Marlins, again, more competition for next spring training. Nothing's guaranteed when it comes to Max or Troy. But games like these, in which you're producing and you're helping your team win, the Marlins had 4 hits all game. And one of them was from Troy. The other one was from Max Acosta, the home run. Those were the 2 RBIs. They won this game. Without them, the Marlins probably lose somehow in devastating fashion to the Braves. That's just how it works. And they waste a Cabrera start. But no, this is a game in which you go home and you feel really good about it. If you're a Marlins fan, if you're Acosta, if you're Johnston, I'm rooting for these guys. And it's great to see Troy heat up. He was struggling to start his career. He was hitting under 200. It was like 167, 175, something like that. Looked a little bit overmatched at the plate. He settled down. He adjusted. I mean, people forget how much of a jump there is from AAA to the majors. It's not easy. This is the highest level of professional baseball in the world. The best players play in the MLB. And you're playing them in minor leagues, in the minors, your whole career. You get the call. It's a wake-up call. The call-up is a wake-up call because you've got to adjust to better pitchers, better stuff against the best of the best. And Troy is doing that. He's finally figuring it out. It's great to see. Month of September is going to be fun to watch. A lot of storylines. Graham Pauley when he comes back. Ryan Weathers when he comes back. I saw earlier Isaac Azut said he could be pitching in the Detroit series. That's upcoming. So good to see that Ryan Weathers is progressing in his recovery. And also another pitcher that avoided injury, Jansen Junk. He won't be missing a lot of time. No time at all. He's going to get a start in the next series, I believe, against the Mets. So very happy that there was no major damage. There was no concerns with him moving forward. Close out the year strong. That should be the storyline. Win as many games as you can. Maybe you can finish over 500. Stay above the Braves. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Marlins. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And until next time, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.